In this video, I'm going to show you how to drape a simple slip dress with no pattern. For this project, we're going to need scissors, pins, measuring tape, thread, and I'm using a non-stretch fabric. Mine's about a medium weight with a slight stretch on the bias. So we're going to start by draping the front of the dress. We're going to do all of our draping on the bias to get as much stretch as we can out of this non-stretch fabric. We're going to play with the fabric, pinning it at the side seams, and create a shape that we're roughly happy with. I'm placing this piece of elastic just to get an idea of what I want the neckline to look like. And I'm doing the same with my measuring tape, just trying to sort of understand the shape that I'm trying to create. And then I'm going to place pins once I get an idea of that shape. At this stage, all we really need to do is focus on pinning the side seams. We want to make sure that we have enough fabric on the top to create a neckline that we're going to like, and that we have enough fabric on the side to create a little more volume if we decide to make any alterations. With our scissors, we're going to really roughly cut the side seams, making sure to leave lots of extra fabric on both of the sides, and then we're going to cut the bottom of the dress, again making sure to leave extra fabric. And we can leave the neckline for the moment. Now we're going to drape the back of the dress, again with the fabric on the bias. We need to make sure that the fabric is going to stretch over the hips because we're not going to use any zippers or elastics for this dress. So even though we're pinning it at the height of the waist, we don't want to pin it too tight because we still want it to fit over the hips. And you can see I'm pinning it at a bit of an A-line because I want the dress to have a slight amount of volume, which I'm going to make adjustments to once I actually try it on. Now I'm just testing that I didn't pin it too tight that it's not going to fit over my hips. If you're a little curvier, you can also test this by pulling it over your shoulders. Just because there's no zip or elastic, we need to make sure that we can take the dress on and off. Now we can trim away the excess from the back piece just as we did for the front piece. Now we're going to roughly pin out the neckline. If you don't have a mannequin, it's a little harder, but you can do all this pinning on yourself as well. We're also just pinning down the front to make sure that the front piece aligns with the back piece. We can trim away that extra piece in the front, but make sure that you're not cutting away too much fabric before you actually try it on. Then with pins, you can roughly shape out the other side of the dress. Even though we cut the extra fabric off the front of the dress, we want to leave that triangle of fabric left alone in the back. Now I'm just doing any repinning to make sure that my two side seams are looking nice and straight. We want to now measure how long we need the front strap to be. So the front strap is going to go from the back of the dress, all along the front of the neckline, and then back around to the other side of the dress. And with that measurement, we're going to cut a bias strip in that length in about 5 centimeters of width. If your fabric isn't long enough, you can also attach two of these pieces together. Now by pinning on the strap that I just created, I can get a better feel for the shape of the dress. And you're going to pin this piece along the front top of the neckline. And here I'm just playing with different options of how I can place the straps. For now, I'm just going to place them straight back and pin them at the side seams. The second strap we're going to measure is going to go along the side of the dress, and you're going to leave enough extra to be able to tie a bow in the back. And you're going to cut two of these, one for either side of the dress. And then once you cut both of those, you can pin those roughly onto the dress to again just get the feel of how it's going to fit and where those straps are going to lie. And you can see my two side straps have enough length that I can tie a bow in the back. With still nothing actually sewn, we're going to try the dress on and make any adjustments to our pins. All we need to make sure is that we like the placement of the side seams, the volume of the dress, and we can make any adjustments to the neckline. I'm going to lower mine by about 5 centimeters and just mark it out with pins the new placement. I'm now pretty happy the way it's all pinned, so I can make adjustments to that temporary strap and replace it a little lower. The reason the straps need to be cut on the bias is to create that slight curve around the neckline. We need to use the stretch of the fabric. We can now cut away the extra fabric on the side seams, leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. We can also cut away the extra on the neckline, again leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once we cut away all the excess fabric on all of the edges, we can take our front piece and fold it in half. This is a technique I like to use to make sure that both sides of my garment are equal. So here I'm just trimming away to make sure that both sides are even. And then you're going to do the same for the back piece as well, again making sure that you're leaving that excess triangle on the back. So we've now perfected the front and the back piece of our dress, and we're ready to attach the two together. Placing right sides together, we're going to line up our two side seams and pin. And then you're going to sew with a straight stitch right along the two side seams where you just pinned. The next step is optional, but because my fabric frays, it's important that I'm going to finish those edges. So I like to trim away the extra fabric on the two seams that I just sewed, and then I'm going to go over those two seams with a zigzag stitch. I'm also going to go over the edges of the triangle piece in the back. For an even cleaner finish, you can go over these side seams twice with a zigzag stitch to really lock in those fraying threads. With our side seams sewn, we're now ready to attach our straps. Placing right sides together, we're going to place the center of the strap to the center of the front of the dress. And then we're going to pin the strap along the top of the neckline, and then sew along where you pinned. With the first strap now attached, we're ready to attach the two side straps. The side strap needs to lie underneath the strap that we just sewed, so you can either sew the side straps first or unstitch the strap we just sewed by 1 centimeter and place the side straps underneath. We're then just going to sew along where we pinned. We now have 2 of the 3 straps attached. We're now going to do the same that we did for the other side by unstitching the top strap by 1 centimeter and sliding our side strap underneath. And then placing right sides together, we're going to pin down that side strap, right down to where the back of the dress attaches at the side seam. And then again sew along where we pinned. I'm then going to cut away all the excess seam allowance for those 3 stitches we just made. We're now on to the second step of attaching the straps. I decided I wanted thinner straps, so I trimmed the band down to about 3 centimeters. This is a preference that's totally up to you. You can also absolutely leave it if you want a thicker strap. We're then going to iron what's left of our seam allowance towards the band, and then fold that over by 1 centimeter, iron that again, and then continuing that process, folding each side over 1 centimeter until the end of the strap. And then we're going to fold it over again, tucking in all those raw edges and ironing it down. When you're done ironing, you want to put in pins to keep it all in place. You're going to continue ironing and pinning until you've worked your way down the whole strap. Taking a closer look, you can see I've placed my pins in the seam and I'm catching the fabric on the other side. And then when it gets to just the strap, I'm just pinning through the folded layers. And you're going to sew along all where you pinned in the seam allowance and then continue onto the strap for the rest of the tie. So that's 1 strap sewn, as you can see here, and we're going to do the exact same for all 3 of our straps. And because I wanted a thinner strap, I have to trim down all of those pieces. It's really important to use your iron for this process because it makes it quite hard to do without it. And you want to do your 2 side straps first and leave the top strap for last. Okay, so moving on to the top strap, we're going to do exactly what we did for the side straps, ironing our seam allowance, folding over 1 centimeter on the strap, trimming away any extra if you need to, and if you unstitch any of it at the corners, it'll reattach when you do your top stitch. You're then going to fold over your seam allowance, iron that down, fold it in half again, and place your pins. You also want to make sure that your side strap is getting tucked in during the pinning process. And then, just like before, we're going to sew along where we pinned, in the seam, catching the fabric on the other side. And then continuing to fold for the strap as well, tucking in that side strap. We're now going to move on to hemming the dress, where we're just going to fold it up once with a small fold and sew. We're doing this technique because I want a really small hem for this fabric. If there's a lot of fabric poking up, you can trim away some of the excess. And then we're just going to fold it over a second time and sew it again. If you're able to move your needle to the right hand position, it'll make it a little easier to get it close to the edge. Now we just need to decide what to do with the straps. You can be done now and leave it as a halter, or you can decide to attach your straps to the back of the dress. This would just be done with a hand stitch, or you could do a small stitch with your sewing machine. If you find that the dress is slightly gaping at the sides, which can happen with this cut of dress depending on your body type, I have two options. One, you can add another strap that's going to tie in the middle of the two straps that we already have, or we can add a piece of elastic. This piece of elastic would just be sewn in with a zigzag stitch on the top of the fabric. You could have the elastic poking through, or you could tuck it in so that you don't see the elastic at all. Either way, you're going to give the elastic a slight tug when you sew. These are two options to play with if you want to alter slightly the fit of the dress. I really like that with this dress, there's so many options of where to place the straps, how many straps you'd like, and it can really change the fit and the vibe for the dress that you're making. And you're all done! Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, please subscribe.